Hello guys, I hope you're all well. This is a bit of a different kind of video from me today. If you follow me on Instagram or Letterboxd, you will know that last night I saw Dune again. This was my fourth time watching the film in IMAX, and to be completely honest with you, that would have been enough to make my night, but the reason why this time around it was so special was because after the film had finished, I got to witness an in-person live Q&A session with none other than Mr. Denis Villeneuve. It was such a wonderful and surreal experience for me, seeing one of my all-time favorite filmmakers sit really no further than 10 meters right in front of me, discussing and sharing his experience working on this film. I did manage to shoot a little bit of content, so I thought why not take you guys through last night and hopefully share some of this amazing experience that I had. So yeah, without further ado, let's get on into the video. So we kicked the night off with a meal at a Korean barbecue restaurant called Yori. Honestly guys, if you're in the central London area and you like Korean food, you've never tried Korean food, I definitely recommend this place. This was, I believe, my second time here. The food is awesome, the service is pretty good, and the place in general is just very chill, nothing too crazy. Finally, after we finished our meal, we headed on over to the IMAX at Leicester Square for the film. And to be honest with you guys, we were pretty scared that the security at the cinema were going to confiscate the camera and all the gear, but luckily they didn't. I'm sure quite a few of you who have been watching the channel in the past couple of weeks will already know this, but Dune is of course my favorite film of 2021 so far. And last night was just another reminder for me on why I just love going to the cinema on opening nights, on opening weekends, and for special occasions like this, because you're really having that shared communal experience with people who are just as enthusiastic and as passionate about films as you are. The energy in the room with film fans just hits completely differently, and that was never more so the case than when the film had finished and the credits had started to roll and Denis walked into the IMAX auditorium, and yeah guys, the atmosphere was just electric. I'd say the only real downside to last night was the fact that we didn't actually get to ask Denis any questions ourselves. We didn't have that opportunity, but nevertheless, I think Edith Bowman, who some of you might recognize from the BBC, I think she did a really great job in sort of hosting this session. We of course didn't film the entire Q&A, but we did manage to get a decent amount of footage. So I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to hand you guys over to the master himself.
I want it to end. I wanted more of the world, I wanted more of the characters. And I know that you made that kind of, you talk about the book being just rich with characters and with story. And you made that choice to do it in two.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's good. It's a good thing.
It's just that I was feeling that it was too dense to put it in one movie. It's like there was too many, that story was too big to fit one film. And I'm the one who suggested to do it in two parts. And I wanted to shoot both parts simultaneously, one after the other, but it was too expensive, so I agreed to do one part, and to see how people felt about it. If it felt honest, it felt so if the movie raised, the deal was if the movie raised enough enthusiasm, then there will be we'll do the part two.
What do you think? Do you want a part two?
You're very sweet. No, more than no, it's a joke. It was a bet, but we will shoot part two soon. The thing is, it's a good thing that it happened this way, because it was physically very demanding to do this movie. Shooting in the desert was not. It was very rewarding, but physically challenging, and I don't think I would have been able to both movies. It would have been too exhausting, and I learned so much. I had the impression to go back to film school doing this film for several reasons, and I feel that the second part will benefit a lot from all the lessons I got from part one.
Do you feel that it's been a bit like, you know, this film's incredible. I'm such a fan of your storytelling through the years, and does it feel almost in a way that each film you've made has been steps towards this because it's meant so much to you and it's been a story that you've wanted to tell since you were a young boy?
I will dare to say yes in some ways, because it's like an accumulation of experience that led me to make this project. Everything I've learned, like for instance, as a world building on Blade Runner or VFX on Arrival, or it's all an accumulation of experience that allowed me to do this one.
Who's the biggest Dune fan, you or Hans Zimmer?
The thing is that Hans was the first artist I approached when I decided to make this adaptation. I was finishing Blade Runner with him, and I asked him if he knew anything about a book called Dune, and it happened that it is one of his favorite books, and he was one of his oldest dreams to score an adaptation. He was so into it that he had decided never to watch the previous incarnation, because he wanted to stay a virgin. He wanted to make sure that the music he had in his mind stay intact, and so he was the first one I approached, and it was Hans is one of the most impressive artists I ever worked with. He has like he's a master, and I would say he's a genius. I don't use this word very often, but it's really like but so humble, so vulnerable, and for this movie, his goal was to try to reinvent himself, to try to approach music in a different way of what he did in the past, using rhythm in a different way, he invented instruments. He went crazy for months. He was like buying pipes at Home Depot or cutting them, trying to create new wind instruments. He wanted to find a new musical language.
Those relationships need to work in so many different ways. You know, you talk about Timothy and then Rebecca and how you kind of almost worked out the way, and you know, even like Jason Momoa's Duncan, and it's just a beautiful relationship that him and Timothy have on screen, and it's a very important one as well. And in terms of finding those relationships, you know, whether it's Timothy and Oscar or Timothy and Rebecca, Timothy and Zendaya, did you test, or was it, or how did you know?
The truth, I would say, David Cronenberg said about a filmmaker I deeply admire, said one day, when you do casting, it's like playing Ken and Barbie, and you try to you try to mate. No, but it's like it's instinct and trying to find. Of course, you take risk, but I was hoping that there will be something happening between Timothée and Rebecca, and I knew Timothée admired Rebecca and Oscar Isaac. That I was hoping that it do, but it's my job to try to make sure it will happen. The two only characters that I had the screen test together were Zendaya and Timothée. Because I went through a traditional casting process to find Shani. To my great surprise, Zendaya, at the time Euphoria had not been out, she was already well known, but she impressive actress that has a very strong charisma on camera, and the more I was shooting, the more I shot. I was improvising. I went back to the desert with the film crew along with her just to shoot more and more, because I just felt the more I was shooting, the more the movie was gaining into let's say power. So there was something about my deep joy about making part two is to work more with her. say, and of course with the rest of the cast. But right now it's like this movie was like just like a promise to work more with her and Javi Martin.
Was there a particular piece of Timothy's work that was that you saw that was in your head that you go, that's why I want him for Paul? Or was it accumulation of things?
There's Beautiful Boy, that movie where it was like quite stunning, and Call Me by Your Name, of course, because the level of maturity and sensibility that an actor required to be able to portray that, I was very impressed by.
And then once the Gum Jabbar scene for me is just, I think, his acting throughout the whole film I think is incredible, but in that particular scene, you're kind of like, he's just got his hand in a box, and this journey that he goes on in that scene is incredible.
Yeah, it's a scene that is very famous in the book. The scene when he put his hand in that box, it's one of the iconic scenes, and it was one of the first scenes we shot with Timothée. And I remember seeing him transforming himself as he got possessed by this force that was rising into him as he was entering the pain. And that transformation, I saw it on camera. And that when I saw that happen, I was happy. I was dancing around the camera like a rabbit, because I knew at that precise moment that I had found Paul Atreides, that I didn't made any mistake. It was like there's always a moment. Again, casting is a very sensitive moment, a part of the process. It's very delicate, and you must not go wrong. You cannot make a mistake at this. But it's a bet. You will know ultimately when the camera rolls, and that moment was really impressive.
What do you most remember about the shoot for Dune? When you think about being in the desert, making this film, what's the memory that pops into your head?
Yeah, funny enough, you went through to the desert, because we shot, of course, this movie in several locations, but in the desert. I will say that when we shot in two deserts, in Jordan, Wadi Rum, when they shot Lawrence of Arabia. It's a very impressive landscape. And then we shot also in Abu Dhabi, where there's oceans, those oceans of sand dunes. And in Abu Dhabi, we were able to shoot only very early morning and at the end of the day, for two reasons. The first one is that for the light, that we were needing those moments where the sun was not out yet, and early morning light, but also because at 9 a.m. It was becoming too hot, too dangerous for people to be in the desert, so we had to bring back the crew. So we were waking up at 3 a.m., shooting from 6 to 8:30, bringing back the crew, going back to bed until 4 p.m., and then going back in the desert until the sun went. It was that, and these moments of sunrise or sunset with my film crew, tiny film crew, more guerrilla style, you know, that I would remember. I knew that it was exhausting for the crew, but we had a blast, because it's for people who went to that kind of landscape. It has an impact on the soul. It really has an impact on creativity, of course. I was deeply moved by the experience of sharing emotions with a group of people. Watching a movie where I was looking at a movie from one of my friends, and so to see people again going back to the theater, and that's a massive joy in my heart, honestly. It's like, because it's part of the cinema experience, it's part of the language, the big screen, the way you heard the movie tonight. I mean, I don't have a sound system like that at home. I don't know about you guys, but it's like, the movie was made as a love letter for the theatrical experience. So I'm so deeply happy that we can finally go back.
But has this response that the film's had kind of give you that confidence and excitement to give us that next part?
Frankly, yes. The idea that if the studio, we had seen the numbers being just okay or yeah, and the reviews being and feeling that people didn't and say, but you will do part 2. I will say, I will have been a bit. Let's say it's just that there was I receive some joy from people, which brings me a ton of energy to go back in the desert. That's the truth. Yeah, that's a relationship.
When?
Okay.
When?
And next year, yeah, before the end of the summer, we're supposed to go back, which is tomorrow morning. Yeah. So, funny enough, the way it works is that we were waiting to see if it will generate enough enthusiasm. And it went well in Europe, and then there was UK and US, Canada, waiting to see the numbers. And when the numbers were pretty good, in fact great, on Sunday night, finally, I went to bed. And I slept for a baby like I didn't sleep in the past 4 years. And by the end, I remember that Monday morning waking up, finally, like someone had removed 1,000 of weight from my shoulder, you know. But by the end of the day, I was going back in pre-production. I had my first meeting for the next movie. So it was like just a few hours of relaxation.
Straight back in, I love it.
We're gonna spend the night here. If I answer to all, I learned so much about everything, about my craft, about everything, about it's a movie that brought a lot of humility inside me. Because it's like, I had a great crew, that's what I can say.
We've had a real blast getting to, well, I have, sorry, I've totally kept Mr. Villeneuve to myself, but I hope you've enjoyed our little chat about his wonderful film. I mean, I think one of very few filmmakers who can make such beautiful, intimate stories on a huge scale. You draw us in immediately, and we care, and we love these characters and the world that they inhabit. The wonderful Mr. Denis Villeneuve.
Merci, madame.
And that was more or less all the footage I got, guys. If you do want to check out more talks and more interviews with Denis on Dune, there are hundreds here on YouTube for you to choose from. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I had such a blast shooting it. Just to see Denis in person, someone whose work I have been such a big fan of over the years, someone who will no doubt go down as one of the great filmmakers of all time. Share his passion for the source material, share his experience collaborating with so many people, share his experience shooting this film was such a magical moment for me, and one that I will never forget. Guys, thank you so much for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did shooting it. If you did, be sure to leave a like and maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. But for now, that is it from me, and I'll catch you in the next video.